You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. This is your host Leah
And Sophia.
And Emma.
What have you been up to this week, Leah?
Just moving. I love moving, but it is tiring. So it's a good tired. But yeah, I'm like halfway into my new place. I'm packing up my kids' stuff still. That's like the main leftover things. But Thursday, hopefully, I'll be out completely in my new place. So
Yay! Cheers to new
excited about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the chance to like reorganize everything and setting up like a little desk with my cross-stitch supplies and my books and everything. So that's kind of where my brain is at. What about you, Emma?
Oh man, this week has been very interesting. I've shared a little bit on the podcast about my conception journey. Yeah, it's been wild. My wife and I are trying to have a second baby, and we went the fertility clinic route because even though I'm a midwifery student, I just thought that would be easier, I guess. But we decided it felt right to try doing insemination at home. And so we've been on that journey, and I got to do my first IUI, and that was really cool. And I feel like it takes a lot of mental energy as well. I'm sure people out there that are trying to conceive can relate. It's like all you think about. It's like when you're in that mode, it's just kind of draining because you're just like, it's all consuming. But I'm also really hopeful and really excited. So yeah, everybody send us some good baby juju, please.
Yes. And will you be allowing our followers to follow you on your journey?
I guess so. I didn't even mean to, but it looks like we're doing that. So,
and you just found out a few days ago that people actually listen to our podcast.
I was very surprised by that because I feel like, what? I don't know. I don't know. I hadn't thought about people in my community listening, and then I heard that they are, and I'm like, oh, well, okay. But it's good.
We were at a peer review, and one of the midwives was like, oh yeah, I listened to the podcast, it's really great. And Emma got this like deer in headlights look on her face, like somebody actually listens. Oh no. But I know.
It's good. I'm glad we have listeners out there. Oh boy. Yeah, so if you live in my town, please don't share my business. I'm just kidding. How are you, Sophia?
I'm good. We just had finished our first week of swim lessons for the kids, but it's that like that infant swim rescue where it's like survival swim classes, not necessarily play swim. And it's intense, especially for my daughter. She's still having a hard time with it. They said the first week there's usually a lot of crying, which was accurate. My son, as of last Friday, was like, this is fun. And he's really enjoying himself now. And she's still very scared. The little girl before us, because we've gotten to see the end of her session every time we show up. And she is usually like crying hysterically in the pool. And intense to watch. And today we showed up and she was like smiling and laughing and telling her mom this is so much fun. And so I was just explaining to Gracie that, to just keep going, because you never know which lesson you'll be at where all of a sudden you're having fun and then it's not scary anymore. And right now it's scary for you, but it could be tomorrow is the lesson where you just start having fun. So I'm hoping it's going to happen for her soon. But we have all the like calming sprays and her bunny and her baby that she's been giving birth to all day, every day. And like all the things that bring her joy. We have some like Bach flower essences for like grief and trauma. And so afterwards I spritz her all over and like throw her bunny and her baby at her and chill her out. But yeah, it's pretty intense to watch her feel so scared. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what my week entailed, because it's every single day for 10 minutes for each of them. So Monday through Friday, 10 minutes for Ben, 10 minutes for Grace, for 7 weeks. So we just finished our first week.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, today's a really fun birth story. I had interviewed both of the parents separately, but I thought that I would share their birth stories back to back. So the first story you're going to listen to is Cassie's account of her birth experience. Cassie is very special to me. She's been a friend for a long time. Our mothers are friends, and I was her doula a long time ago, I guess like 11, 12 years ago. It was one of my very first births. I want to say it was like the 8th birth I ever went to or something like that. And I was her doula. And I remember her saying to me, I'll never give birth without you again. And then 11 years later, she contacted me to be her midwife. So that was really sweet. And then, and Emma was at this birth with me. And then
That's our first birth together.
yes, it was our first birth together. And then I was assisted by Lisa Rawson, who's up in Mendocino, because I don't normally serve that area. And so I had a midwife who lived up there assist me just in case we had to go to the hospital. I wanted someone who knew the system really well up there, because I don't. So then the second story you'll hear will be Jedi's story of his 4 birth experiences. Yeah, so we hope you enjoy. Hi, Cassie.
Hello.
Thanks for meeting up with me virtually. It's good to see you. It's been almost a year.
I know. Yeah, 10 months. Well, little
Yeah, I
less.
just wanted to check in with you about your experience. But I wanted to touch base too, because you have 2 children, about your first birth, and just a little summary of how all that was and what led you to choose home birth for your second baby.
Yeah. So with my firstborn, she's now 8 years old, and
This is totally comfortable and candid, and yeah, she can be upset if she wants.
I've always been interested in doing, having my babies outside of the hospital, because I've never felt comfortable in a hospital. Really never spent much time in a hospital, and I just, how sterile and the smell, and it's not the way that I pictured having my babies. And so with my first birth, I tried to do it at the birth center in Santa Rosa, and ended up getting transferred to the hospital. So I wasn't able to have the birth how I envisioned it. And so when I got pregnant again, I really wanted to try for a home birth.
And can you tell me a little bit about like what conception was like? Not actually the day of, but like, was it planned? Was it kind of a surprise? What was that like?
So I was actually using the copper IUD. I had a pretty bad experience with it. I was having a lot of symptoms. I was really moody, I was depressed, and I was getting a lot of acne. And somehow I was able to link the two together. I got on a Facebook group that I figured all these other women are having the same symptoms. So I actually removed it, and that day I got pregnant. So it was it was a surprise, but I definitely wanted 2 children, so it was like an unplanned surprise.
Yeah, we sometimes will say like you need to like open the door to allow your next baby in, but you just had to like crack the window. She just squeezed in. She was ready. Cool. Do you recall like finding out you were pregnant and what that was like?
Yeah, so I took a test. I had missed my period because I'm really regular. So I mean, to the day most of the time. So when I didn't get my period, I was like, there's no way, I just took out the IUD because it was only like a week or 2 later. And so, when I found out, I was excited. My partner, he was I wouldn't say excited. He already had 4 children, so he knew that we wanted to have one more, that he wasn't ready at the time.
Yeah. And what was the pregnancy like for you? Was it pretty smooth? Did you have any hiccups along the way?
Yeah, the pregnancy was really smooth. I did get morning sickness, pretty bad, but other than that, it was pretty smooth.
She's like, I'm so sleepy.
She just learned the sign for water. Could you do the sign? Water?
Oh. I love baby sign. It's so helpful. So your pregnancy was pretty smooth. At what point in your pregnancy did you decide you wanted a home birth?
So at first I went to just a regular doctor, and just interacting with, I was at the birth center up here in Ukiah, and they were great, but you saw a different provider every time, and it just wasn't very personal. They kind of got you in and out, and I realized, okay, about halfway through my pregnancy, I was like, okay, I want to do a home birth. I want to do this and try and do it the way I always envisioned.
Yeah. And your partner was always on board, or was that a hard sell, or what was that like for you?
His other children have been born. 2 of his other children had been born at home, so he was used to that. And then he did have 1 child in the hospital, so he really wanted a home birth as well.
That makes things so much easier when you don't have somebody you have to like convince.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Was there anybody else in your life who was a hard sell, or was everyone kind of on board? Did you tell people, or did you kind of keep it to yourself?
I told, obviously my parents, and they, I think in the back of their mind, they're a little worried just because, they're used to more conventional, hospitals and doctors, but they really didn't express it because they knew I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyway. So I think they just kind of accepted it. I did talk to a friend about it, and she kind of, was trying to put fear into me and tell me a story about her friend. And, I just didn't let that, bother me. I knew what I wanted to do, so.
Yeah, it was really sweet when I got the call from you, because I was your doula the first time around 8 years ago. And so to hear that you wanted a home birth and you wanted me to support you, it felt like, wow, this is fun. This is like full circle to do this again together.
I wanted you to be a part of my birth, whether it was a doula or midwife, because I had such a good experience with you in my past birth, that didn't go very well or didn't go as planned, and you were there really advocating for me. And I
stole your placenta from the hospital, right? Because they weren't going to give it to you.
Yeah, you stole my placenta, and they were trying to cut me to was it episiotomy or? and you didn't let that happen, and things. I was so out of it. I was in full labor giving birth, and you were the voice that I wasn't able to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I knew I wanted you at my birth, but when I found out you're a midwife, I was like, perfect.
Yeah, and it's not like a typical area that I serve too, but I didn't even think twice. I was like, of course I'm coming. Yeah. Great. So take me to the end of your pregnancy and like realizing you're in labor. Was it start stop? Was it just like, this is on? Like, what was that going into labor like? And what was your labor like?
So I'd always heard that, your second child you have early or right away. So I was she was born on January 16th. So I was thinking I was around Christmas. I thought I was going to have the baby. But
she was due or born?
She was born on January 16th.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason in my mind, I thought she was going to come early.
Mm-hmm.
So that last month was really long, and I think she was actually born like a week or two after her due date. So it was long. I just had to keep trusting that, my body will do it when it's ready. Because I'm part of a due date group online. And so all these women were getting induced. And, I felt like the only one that was like going past 40 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I just trusted in my body, and the last few weeks were just hard. I was having some back pain, and it just wasn't as comfortable. I got one of those bouncy balls and started bouncing on it, but I just kind of trusted the whole process, and that really helped. And then I started getting contractions. I want to say the night before they were coming on lightly. And then when I woke up the next morning, they were just really light all day, and started getting stronger and stronger towards nighttime. And I didn't want you to get there too soon because I was, worried with the drive. I didn't want you to have to go home and like drive back. So I was trying to push it as long as possible. But then Jedi was like, if you don't call Sophia, I'm going to call her.
It was pretty rainy that night, yeah?
Yeah. It actually snowed that morning.
That's right. The next morning it snowed.
Yeah. And so he made me call you because it was pretty hard to talk during the contractions at that point. And it was getting late. And so I'm glad I did because she was born pretty quickly after you got there. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and another fun note, I remembered you were pregnant at the same time as your dog.
Yeah. Yeah. We had just sold our last puppy like a week or two before I gave birth. So.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I remember that was sweet to get to like watch them grow up, during our appointments.
Yeah.
So what was labor like? What was the actual like moment of birth like for you if you think back in those very first hours after?
I think the hardest part was the parts to get up to that transition before I started pushing. That when I look back, that's the most like pain I can remember. But then when I was ready to start pushing, I felt like there was almost like time to breathe. It gave me, because the contractions were like stacked up on each other so close, and it was so painful. There was no really time to get a breath in. But then once I moved past transition into the pushing stage, I was like, oh, okay, I can like breathe, and then, yeah, that was the hardest part. I would say it was maybe an hour and a half that was, pretty tough. But then when I got to the pushing, I had a fear in my mind from pushing with my previous daughter because she was, what is it, sunny side up?
Yeah, posterior.
Posterior.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have a fear around pushing, but since she was
transported during pushing with her.
transported during pushing, yeah, because I pushed for like 3 hours. I couldn't get her out. But with Jade, she was the right way. So compared to the last time, it was, like a walk in the park.
Yeah, and you were in the birth tub.
I was in the birth tub, and that helped so much. That really, I remember both births, the birth tub was just really, really, really relaxing and brought some comfort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is there any memory about like the actual moments of birth or like the moments right after she was born that you recall?
Um,
To you?
Right before birth, I remember she was, it felt like forever because I felt like I was waiting for the last contraction to come while she was like halfway in, halfway out. That just felt like a long time waiting. And then when she finally came out, I remember my daughter running in, and she had been in the other room. I thought she was sleeping, and she came in. She's like, "There's a baby."
Yeah. We thought she was sleeping the whole time. She was like just silently listening, waiting.
And that was a sweet moment. And I remember my dog coming up like during the contractions and comforting
me. Do you remember your placenta being born?
I do remember that. I wanted to get out of the tub. It was kind of taking a little longer than I wanted, but I think I delivered the placenta within 30 minutes of being born, if I can remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just something I kind of just wanted to get over with and rest with my baby.
Like, I just want to be done at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Was there anything in those like first few hours postpartum that stood out to you, for better or worse, or what was that like?
I would say in the very beginning, because she was born around 2 a.m. and you're already so exhausted, and then it's kind of like you leave and you're just left with this baby, and Jedi was sleeping. I'm like, wait, what do I do? I'm tired. Now I have a baby at the time. So it's definitely an adjustment.
Mm-hmm. And what about the first few weeks postpartum? What was it like with her? How was she as a baby?
They were great. I really felt like I healed super fast. Like everything shrunk back really fast. The pain was minimal. I mean, the next day I was up, doing stuff and laundry, and there was no tearing or no real pain. I bought that spray, like the numbing spray, and I never even used it. So yeah, the recovery time was really, really fast. And my friends and everyone were super supportive. They brought food and meals, and so I just felt taken care of and loved.
Good. Do you recall the middle of the night phone call in the early weeks?
Oh, yes, that's right. I think I tried to block that out. Yeah, so she was just screaming and was inconsolable for hours. I want to say 5 hours. I think I called you after like 3 hours in the middle of the night. And what I'm thinking she was hungry and my milk wasn't fully coming in, and she just wanted to nurse constantly. And I think I just didn't have enough food for her, and she was hungry is what I think. But
yeah, part of my thoughts were there's this way that we can like replay our past traumas as a way to like heal them. And I do recall with your first baby that there was this period in the hospital where all she did was scream. Yes. And she couldn't even nurse, and she was born by vacuum. And we ended up, I had no idea. I was a new doula. And so I think I went on some forums and asked around like any advice, and everyone was like cranial sacral chiro, cranial sacral chiro, cranial sacral chiro. And I was like, okay, like, and so I just Googled some people and asked them if they'd see a new baby who wouldn't stop crying. And you guys had to like sign against medical advice, did you, to leave? Or because they wanted like breastfeeding established before, but she just couldn't.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to that? Because it was very, at least for me, like not triggering of that experience, but very familiar. Like, oh, this is not that it's like playing out and it's like bound to happen again, but like it was something that you needed to heal from. So it was like giving you the opportunity almost.
Yeah, definitely. No, that was really hard, especially being my first born, is you have no idea. I'm like, oh wow, this is what having a baby is. They just scream constantly because I didn't know. And I remember the nurses at the hospital were, you know, getting frustrated because they didn't really know what was wrong either. And then when you told us any advice, we're like, okay, let's do that, you know, because we trusted you. And so we took her straight out of the hospital. I think the same, you know, like afternoon, you had made us an appointment for the chiropractor as well as the cranial sacrum. And then after that, she was just a completely different baby. She latched on, was nursing, and she was just normal, you know, she wasn't screaming and crying. So looking back, I think she was just in a lot of pain.
Yeah, and how can you eat if you're in pain?
Yeah.
And I remember my memory, if it's right, says that like all they were really offering you was breastfeeding support and like, you know, baby Tylenol or something equivalent for like, you know, and she would just scream until she, you know, fell asleep, you know. Yeah, so it just like when she was having this screaming thing, I remember I like even got on the phone in the middle of the night with a chiropractor and was like, do we need to do this again? Like, what is happening? Like, because there was no trauma necessarily in her birth. Like, you caught your own baby. It was, you know, us just witnessing, and, you know, you and your partner just gave birth to her and picked her up. And, but birth just inherently can be traumatic and a lot of pressure. And so that was where my mind was going, like, oh, is this playing out again? But she never ended up, it was kind of like, oh, I think as we were planning it all, you were like, okay, she just fell asleep. Like, let me reach out if this like picks up again. And so we held off on it, and then it was just never needed.
Yeah. And then I think my milk came in that next day really strong, and then she was fine.
Yeah, she screamed it in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have any takeaways from your birth experiences, like lessons learned, or, you know, gifts you feel like your children brought you through the experiences, or any advice for anyone listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just, you know, trust your body and know that we're designed to have babies. You know, women's bodies are designed to have babies. And I feel like there's a lot of fear, you know, and information that's fear-based in the whole subject of birthing. You know, from my mind, as a child, you see all these crazy scenes on TV, or birth is scary, you know, and just not to fear it. And that's what I love about having you as my midwife, is you really didn't do much during the birth. You just let me and my body just do its thing, you know, and you were there for support, and so that I felt comfortable, you know, in case something were to go wrong and I needed you. But you just really let me birth on my own. You know, you didn't tell me when to push, or like check me during the course of, you know, my labor.
Or even your pregnancy. I never checked you once.
No.
Not needed.
No, I think just to trust in your body, really, and not to fear birth, you know.
Yeah. Great. Well, it's so great getting to chat with both of you. Thanks for making a debut, Jade.
You wait.
She's got this like curly little wisp in the front. It's so cute. Great. Well, thank you again, Cassie, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Thank you so much, Sophia.
Hi, Jedi. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I just wanted to chat with you about you. You actually have a few home birth experiences. Maybe you could give me a little background to the births you had before we worked together, and just kind of like how home birth even came into like your mind, or were you hesitant at all? You know, sometimes partners can be hesitant. And so were you just like game the whole time, or what was your process around like deciding on a home birth the first time?
Okay, yeah. So my background is starts long time ago, about 39 years ago, when I was born in a little 2-bedroom shack with no PG&E.
That's right. I
And,
forgot you said that.
So yeah, I was done as a home birth, you know, I was my mom's I think second home birth. You know, she had her first she had in the hospital.
Mhm.
Back then, hospital births were far different than they are today. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, you know, they took the babies away from the mom right away. You know, and so part of the movement back then was, you know, back then when I was born was back to the earth. You know, and have babies at home, and that was a pretty new concept back then. You know, and so. Fast forward, you know, 20 something years, when I had my first, you know, I had my first in a hospital, and it was here in Ukiah. It was, you know, it was a great setting, you know, that was awesome, but I wanted to have a home birth. And so I've had now I've done 3 babies home birth.
Mhm.
So I have a
And
11-year-old.
so were you like wanting a home birth at the first, and like your partner was a little hesitant, or like why the hospital the first time?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, this was the partner I was with. Just didn't feel comfortable with a home birth, and they wanted, you know, they wanted that. I guess what would you call it, the safety of the hospital? You know, I mean, home births aren't for everybody. You know, it's there's a lot of I guess maybe stigma around it or something, you know, or just a lot of caution or a lot of fear, a lot of, you know, just unknown for a lot of people, you know, and so, you know, home births make some people nervous, but going through the process, you know, I wouldn't do it any other way unless I didn't have a choice about it, you know.
Right.
Um, you
Yeah.
know, especially working with you know, a midwife like yourself and Lisa. So Lisa was actually she actually worked on my second home birth. So that was the second time I had worked with Lisa, you know, and it's just it's really a magical process, you know, to see you know that whole process, you know, transfold, you know, and it's an ancient process, you know, and it's just magical. And being in your own home, I think it just makes it that much more powerful of an experience. Just yeah, I'm a firm believer in the home birth, you know.
How were the experiences? Were they pretty like smooth and straightforward? Were there any bumps along the way, either during prenatal or labor?
No, all the let's see, all the prenatal, everything was good. Everything was good. The first home birth went off. No problems. The second one was a little bit more intense. So the umbilical cord got wrapped around the baby's neck,
Mhm.
and you know there was definitely some tense moments after she came out. She didn't breathe for a long time, and so um, that was yeah, that was definitely a little bit, that was a little bit tough
Yeah.
watching that process happen.
Did the midwives breathe for?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they actually did some mouth to mouth for there, and then all of a sudden she just started crying. So it's like I said, it's just it's a magical process.
So you guys were able to stay home and with that baby too. You didn't have to go to the hospital.
Yeah, they got
Right.
the baby. They got her to breathe, and the color came into her.
Yeah, sometimes it just takes a little while for babies, and like the cord around the neck, that I see that in like, it's like a third of births. It's a pretty common thing, and most of the time it's like loose enough and everything. Sometimes, it can like just shock the babies a little bit if it's really tight and squeezy, not because they don't breathe that way, they're breathing through their umbilical cord. So, but just like having something constrict around your throat can be like shocking for some babies. Yeah. And they just
Yeah,
take a little bit of time to come around. Yeah.
yeah. So that was the deal on that one,
Mhm.
and then the last one that was with you was definitely, I think, the most like just most natural. That baby what happened in the water. And so on the
Was
other
that the
ones,
first? The other ones weren't water births?
well, we had the tub set up, but they didn't actually, when it came time to push, it's just the mom didn't want to be in the tub,
Yeah.
or
Some
I mean,
people
it's
don't.
just kind of at that point, it's just however, to get that last thing
Yeah.
done, it's whatever, it's however they want to do it, however,
Right.
so yeah, so that was really an awesome thing to see, because she came out in the water, and then she was able to just kind of like float in the water, and she didn't have to come up, and that was the most like amazing part of any of the birth, is having the baby be like, she just was like in the water, and you were like, no, she doesn't have to come out, she can just stay in there, and I'm like, wait, no, there, and then and of course, one of the biggest things about home birth is that the father can help out a lot more so than a lot of times when it comes to a hospital, like I was able to catch all three of my babies that I did, on at a home birth,
Yeah.
and so that bond that's created in those first moments of the baby's life, they last forever, and so it's just powerful
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It is beautiful. I know. I'm just like flashing back to the image of her, the head coming out and her being like, what do I do now? And it's just like, yeah, whatever you're doing, just wait till the next contraction. And like that moment when like she's half in, half out, and you can just like, see her between the worlds while you're waiting for like the next sensation to push her out. And then I remember she was like right up on mama's chest and she started crying right away. And then big sister like just came barreling in because we thought she was asleep, but she was really just like quietly listening the whole time, just waiting for the baby. It was so sweet.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to sleep through that process there, I mean, it's definitely not a quiet process.
Yeah, yeah. When Lisa and I, we were just at a birth on Jade's birthday, but like a year later, it was sweet.
Yeah.
Like we were chatting about it, and she was remembering that Blondie, your guys' dog, because she had gotten pregnant and had puppies during Cassie's pregnancy, and during labor, she kept bringing Cassie all of her toys, like to the like right by the tub. She was laboring in the tub. She just kept like bringing all her toys, like just like I need to comfort you. Like, I know what you're going through. It's really cute.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, she's a smart dog, and she's a sweet dog too. So yeah, she was right there, like it's the all hands on deck, all paws on deck.
Yeah, it was a sweet experience for me because I had supported Cassie at the very beginning of my career in birth work, and I was her doula. And like then to have her
Mm.
call and say she was pregnant, wanted to do a home birth, I was like, oh, it feels such like full circle for me, like the beginning stages of me learning about birth work and supporting her. And I remember when she had her baby, she's like, I would never do this without you. And then,
Yeah.
years later, calling me and wanting to do a home birth. And yeah, I just loved how smooth it was. And honestly, like I remember laughing when I charted her like blood loss because I was like, I guess I'll call it something, but she actually had absolutely none. It was like we called it like
Yeah.
a bloodless birth. There was like no blood loss. She just didn't bleed. It was amazing. And I think her bleeding stopped in like a week after or something. It was very
Yeah. She's a tough woman, and my hat goes off to all the women that, go through the process, and, and you midwives that, guide us through, because, it is a natural process, but, we can't do it alone, is, from all the times that you go in and, check the heartbeat, and, all the reassuring, and, that goes along, from the time, we bring you on board to the time, you bring her in the world, and then it continues after, I mean, we still have the umbilical cord that you wrapped up in a
like dehydrate.
yeah, in a love. It says love on it, and wrapped around, and it dries, and then also, the capsules, and, all the follow up, and, all the making sure, all the stuff done after, as far as the testing, and, helping out with birth certificate and social security, and all that stuff. A lot of stuff that, gets done at the hospital,
Yeah. And normally you're
that's what we
just
need
almost
you
not even
for.
a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big piece of the puzzle, just
Yeah.
having that experience. So, we can't thank you enough for, you know,
Yeah.
for what you did for us, and,
It was my
all the
pleasure.
moms all over.
It was like sitting with a sister, I've known her for so long. It was so sweet to be with somebody that I was already like that comfortable with. Um,
Yeah,
well, I have a
that is
question about usually like if a partner has any hesitations about home birth, like the main three questions that they have for us is the safety. They want to know about the safety and the what ifs. The cost, because sometimes it's covered by insurance, but a lot of times it's not. And cleanup, like she just had a baby, she's not going to clean up the mess, like am I going to get stuck with the mess? So were there like anything about those three things that came up for you when you were deciding on home birth?
yeah. So, safety is something that, I feel comfortable with the process, like I said, I was a home birth, and I know a lot of people that have home births, we had it at home, we're only 10, I mean, what are we, 15 minutes away from a hospital, so, that did play into the factor, being semi close to a hospital, just in case something does happen, being close. So, that definitely feels good. As far as the cleanup, yeah, I mean, you guys, I think there was three of you. Yeah, there was you, Lisa, and then there was two of you, and then Lisa came over later. So yeah, I mean, there
Yeah,
was three
Emma was
people.
with us, and I actually just took her on as a full-time student recently. Yeah, so Emma is a student midwife. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think our baby came at like 3 a.m. or something. It was in the middle of the night. And so
Didn't it start snowing like that next morning or something?
yeah, and it
Snowing?
started. Yeah, it did, actually. Cassie just reminded me of that. It started snowing. Um, and I think, the baby came at 3 a.m. and, I passed, I hung out with the baby for a couple hours and then I was exhausted and, I fell asleep and then I woke up and the tub was folded up, all the, all the towels were in the laundry, all the, the kitchen was clean. So yeah, we definitely got our money's worth,
That's actually one of my favorite parts is like leaving the house with no sign that a birth happened except that there's a baby. I love that
Yeah,
part.
it's like this, the stork came and just dropped off a
Yes,
baby,
exactly. You got a package.
And then, yeah, as far as the cost, I mean, I don't know, I don't know how much, I forget how much it even costs, but like I said, it was worth, it's worth every penny to us because, that time is precious, and so for me and Cassie and my partners, it's just, it's something that we value, and so, when it comes down to, is it cost effective or was it worth it? It comes down to, value, is that something that, you're going to value? And that's something we definitely will do over time and time again, if we have an opportunity. So
Yeah, it was a priority for you. Yeah.
yeah, no, I was really happy that she was, wanted to do a home birth, like a lot of people just are afraid of home births. It's,
Right. Yeah, I remember
scary. So
she called me and said she was pregnant, wanted to do a home birth, and I said, because we hadn't met, and I was like, "So, what does your partner think about it? Is he on board?" She's like, "Oh yeah, he's done this," and I was like, "Oh, that's so great."
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
What was is there anything that stood out for you in like the postpartum, like the early postpartum? I do remember like there was one night where Cassie called me because Jade had been up for like, I think it was like 5 hours at that point, just crying. And this must have been the first week, even, or like she was 5 days older. I don't know, something like that. The number five is popping up in my head. But do you remember that night? And
Yeah,
anything else that
yeah,
sticks out to you in the postpartum?
yeah, yeah. I do remember that night. That was a pretty rough night. It was one of those times when the baby just couldn't be comforted. I think it was the night I also ran. I ran and got her first pacifier that night in the middle of the night. Because
Anything.
yeah, you're just like grasping at straws.
Mhm.
But that that's going to happen with a baby. There's going to be times when they're going to cry uncontrollably. And so um, you just gotta weather the storm. you
Yeah,
know. Um,
yeah.
but having able to call you and have you tell us that this everything's fine, this is normal. Definitely makes us feel better that we're not being bad parents or something's not wrong with the baby or
Mhm.
it's just it's that level of like reassurance that we're doing all that we can
Yeah.
and
To me, it struck me as like almost Cassie's trauma from her last birth coming through, like not her last birth trauma, but like because Sequoia just cried nonstop for a couple days until she was able to get to chiropractor and cranial sacral, and then she just like stopped crying. And they
yeah,
weren't gonna even let her out of the hospital, and they just like left and got that done. And so there was like a way where I was like hearing the story, and I was like, I wonder like if this is manifesting because Cassie needs to like push past that this isn't
yeah,
that story anymore, and like this baby doesn't have to be saved necessarily by somebody else. Like she can just write it out and then she can be okay. Because I
hmm,
remember we like got a chiropractor and she was gonna like come in an hour or whatever, like because she had to drive way up there. And like as soon as we had it dialed in that somebody was gonna go up there, she stopped and she went to sleep. And then it was like not a thing, and so we told the chiro not to come, and we're like, we'll just be in touch if it's a thing again. And then it just like wasn't a thing. And it was like, yeah, to me it was just so like reminiscent of that other experience. I was like, I wonder if it was just like something within her that needed to like sort itself out, like it hadn't fully healed her last experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see something like that happening. I think eventually if they cry long enough, they get so tired they gotta fall asleep. So but I'll kind of speak to that having a midwife like you, it's the care extends. I think it was 6 weeks, right? Pat,
Yeah, at the time it was. I've actually extended my care for the first year postpartum. I just
Oh,
did that.
really?
I just changed everything this year
Wow.
because I recognize that like that first year, there are so many huge changes in that first year. And it just seems silly to end care so early. 6 weeks feels so early to me now. So I was calling it like 9 months in, 9 months out, but I've been, basically being with them for the first year on and off, because I feel like there's just so many referrals, and like at 6 months, mama's ready to like talk about her body and her pelvic floor and all these things as she's like kind of moving out of the like being totally absorbed with the baby. At 6 weeks, she's still all about the baby, but at 6 months, she's ready to talk about her body and, things like that. So I think the referrals feel more appropriate later on in that first year. So that's exciting to be able to like stay with the family until the following birthday and everything. And my hope is that in changing that in my practice, other midwives will, do the same, and then the postpartum bar will just be raised, and that will be like baseline and normal. And I think it's helpful to have support that first year.
Yeah, well, that is far beyond the care you're going to get from a hospital birth. I mean, if you go to hospital birth and your baby's crying in the middle of the night, they're going to say, "Oh, take it to the emergency room."
Right.
You're not going to have a physician's cell phone number to call in the middle of the night to like calm you down, and so it can save you a trip to the ER.
And that baby getting poked and prodded because they have to cover all their bases now that you're in here.
If you think something's wrong with your baby, you'll rush that baby to the hospital, fast. So yeah, that was, that's a huge piece of the puzzle for us. And
the reassurance. Yeah. And I mean, that's our job in birth most of the time too, is to be able to say, this is normal, like, yeah, that's normal. Just the reassurance that this is normal. I feel like we have a class on like, how many ways can we say this is normal? Oh yeah, that looks normal.
Yeah, I can still hear the heartbeat. Yeah, everything's normal.
Sweet. Well, thank you for taking time to chat with me. I loved hearing your experiences, and I totally forgot that you were born at home. I'm so jealous. I'm always jealous of people born at home.
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, great. Well, it was good to see you. Have a good night.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, great. You too.
Bye.
Tell your family love.
I will.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us at Born Wild Podcast on Instagram. For inquiries or feedback, you can email us at bornwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me, Emma Ray, on Instagram at Emma Ray, REA.
Sophia at sophiabirth.com.
And me, Leah, at Bay Area Home Birth.
We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people. And as always,
Stay wild.